look at what are the events to keep an eye on today. So we have the weekly expiry today, and on the global front, as I mentioned earlier, US in the initial jobless claims, industrial production, as well as the crude oil inventories, that data will be out. And back home, the companies that will be considering fundraise is DCX Systems as well as Jyoti Structures. On the corporate action front, SEPC will be meeting, the board will be meeting to finalize the issue price of the rights issue. And on the IPO action front, Tata Tech, the price band will be determined.
All right, and let's move on to some global news that we've been tracking for you, and we're getting some somber news from Israel again because global condemnation fails to convince Israel for a ceasefire. Israel has gone ahead and rejected the UN Security Council's Gaza resolution for extended humanitarian pauses. Meanwhile, after numerous raids, Israeli forces at the al-Shifa medical complex claim to have found the command center, weapons and combat gear belonging to Hamas militants. As of now, more than 11,300 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza since the war has begun.
And shifting focus to the high-stakes meeting between the world's biggest leader, US President Joe Biden, as well as Chinese President, the two met in what was their first face-to-face encounter on the sidelines of the APEC summit. Now, amongst the few things discussed were the curbing of the fentanyl flows into the US, the safe use of artificial intelligence, as well as US curbs on Chinese access to high-end tech. Now, both the sides have also reaffirmed that their commitment to cooperate on the climate issues.
Well, and Microsoft has recently announced a custom artificial intelligence chip which would be competing with chip giant NVIDIA. This AI chip can be used to train large language models and potentially avoid a costly reliance on NVIDIA as well. The company has also built its own ARM-based CPU for cloud workloads.
And UK inflation cooled more than expected in October as household energy prices dropped on year-on-year basis. Annual consumer the price inflation also plunged to a lower than expected 4.6% from 6.7% on month-on-month basis. Now, that increase was the smallest in 2 years, and it prompted investors to increase their bets on BOE, the rate cuts, which is expected next year.
Alright, with that, it's time to slip into a very short break on this edition of Market Cafe. But don't go anywhere because when we return, we'll take stock of how the Asian markets have opened up.